Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Tariq Khalid. I'd like to welcome to our program here at Sharjah Broadcasting Authority, Paradise and Hell, Jannah wa Jahannam. It is by Allah's mercy and grace that we have an opportunity to speak to you again. None of us know when we'll leave this world and when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has determined that. We ask Him that we are prepared and to accept, meaning accepting, we have no choice but accept, but that we're prepared in the way that Allah has granted us, and that He will accept us in kindness and mercy. Today we're talking about just that. What is the direction that we need to take? Today there is an invitation for so many directions. Okay, and I just recently myself have been watching some, and I hadn't really been telling truthfully. I hadn't been paying attention to some of the things that are going on, and there are massive movements, and I don't want to go into current events too much, but there are massive movements around the world which are moving people purposely in distinct directions. Some of them, if we take the extreme, far away from the belief in Allah. I mean, they're clearly, without this, no question, taking the people to hellfire. Okay, and I'm not putting names, but they're clearly taking the people to hellfire, and they, don't really hide that, their habits, what they say, what they do, what they're satisfied with. It's very clear that these are the people of hellfire, and they themselves, in many instances, have openly admitted that they have become and submitted themselves to Satan. They're not hiding that. This is something that has surfaced, and we see today plainly, clearly, distinct. Secondly, there are some groups which are calling people to religiousness, historical religion, meaning that we did some research and we found that in our research that our people were the true people of this earth, the first people who were guided to the truth. And we're going back to the worship of our ancestors in the way that our ancestors worshiped, because this is superior. And we have been treated inferiorly, with inferiority complex in this time. And now we're going back to our truth, as an example. And this is just a form, but I was kind of surprised to see that there were so many people who were following this kind of mentality. It is not something that is new, but seemingly nurtured. Time is clearly, and of course we've done programs about the signs of the last days. We have to be very careful. We have to be very, very careful about what we believe today, and we must be firm on that, and we must have firm understanding. So let's see. And Abdullah bin Masud reported the Prophet ﷺ said, "Never a prophet had been sent before me by Allah to his people, but he had among his people his disciples and companions who followed his ways and obeyed his command. Then there came after them their successors who proclaimed what they did not practice, and practiced what they were not commanded to do. And he who strove against them with his hand is a believer. He who strove against them with his heart is a believer. And he who strove against them with his tongue is a believer. And beyond that, there is no gain of faith." And this is collected by Muslim. So there are people now who are making efforts to undermine Islam, to look at what they call fallacies in the Quran, fallacies and statements of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and these kinds of things. So we're seeing that today, which is to be expected. That also is not new. We ought to understand something. Satan does not want people to be on firm ground in their understanding and in their relationship with Allah and working firmly and with complete faith and confidence in obedience. Doesn't want that. So there's always this someone or some persons who will come with something to try to undermine our faith. Ubadah bin Samit reported, we swore allegiance to the Prophet ﷺ to hear and obey in time of difficulty and prosperity, in hardship and in ease, to endure being discriminated against, and not to dispute about rule with those in power, except in case of evident infidelity, regarding which there is a proof from Allah. We swore allegiance to the Prophet ﷺ to say what was right wherever we were, and not to fear from anyone's reproach. This is collected by Bukhari and Muslim. So if we are to look at where we are today, and we look at how the exploitation, for lack of a better description, of the general populace globally, and how the general populace is being manipulated globally, where again, we're killing each other in the name of 1, 2, 3. For example, because that's the extreme, isn't it? When we come to the point where we want to kill each other for some man-made or some material thing, regardless of how it's dressed up to appear, then are we following, obeying the commandments of Allah? Or are we obeying some man or woman who themselves have another agenda? And where does that leave us as individuals? If we are aware and conscious of this, where does that leave us? If we have become so attached to the world that we have just become blind followers, that we're not looking within reason, we're not communicating, we're not engaging with others, we're not patient enough to even debate about the differences that we may have, as opposed to wanting to kill each other, to destroy each other. If we have to look at ourselves in relationship to this, we're seeing that, unfortunately, in this particular time, 2,000 years more or less that we're aware of, that man is still in the same condition, isn't he? Even though we claim that we're better educated, even though we claim we have more knowledge, and maybe, Allah Alam, we have implementation of that knowledge to a degree in our societies. Our societies, we say, are more developed than they were historically. Religiously, we have more people in the religions. If we're talking about the monotheistic religions, we have more people who claim that they are following the monotheistic religions, which all agree that thou shalt not kill. It's very clear and distinct, very clear for the people who say they're obedient to, number one, to Islam, the Quran, to the Torah, to the Injil. It's very clear for all of them and distinctly. Then where do we stand? Is it clear for us, or is it foggy? Did I look at another man and I hate him? I don't know him. I don't know anything about him, but just his form, his figure makes me hate him because I've been brainwashed about that individual. And also I'm in denial about this. I'm in denial about this because I've been trained and taught that this person represents 1, 2, 3, and he's been taught the same thing about me. So as a result, the twain shall never meet because we're shooting darts of hate at each other without really sitting and communicating and attempting to come to some common bond in relationship to that which is most beneficial for us. And Satan loves it. Satan thrives on this kind of confusion, as opposed to especially the people who say they believe in God and believe that there is an eternity and that you have to account for your deeds and actions in this world. That how can those people be this way? If you ask yourself that question, how could I be like that if this is the truth? If I truthfully believe in the one and only God, if I truthfully believe that I have to account for my sins, that I truthfully believe that I cannot be an oppressor in one way or another over another person, that I will have to account, that I believe that there's punishment after death, that I believe that there's hellfire and paradise, and that is eternal. If we think about that, if you really believe that, and you think about your mindset, if you're in that mindset, then what is your present status? What is your present relationship with your Lord? What is your condition today? And this is real. Unfortunately, this is the real set of circumstances that we find ourselves in. And unfortunately, as we look at the world as it evolves, we're seeing the same things that we have seen in history. Whatever has been documented, the truth of it that has been documented historically, it continues. And the oppression and destruction continues. And Noman bin Bashir, Ridolano, reported the Prophet ﷺ said, the likeness of the man who observes the limits prescribed by Allah and that of the man who transgresses them is like the people who get on board a ship after casting lots. Some of them are in the lower deck and some of them in the upper deck. Those who are in the upper deck, on the lower deck, when they require water, go to the occupants of the upper deck and say to them, if we make a hole in the bottom of the ship, we shall not harm you. If they, the occupants of the upper deck, leave them to carry out their design, they will all be drowned. But if they do not let them go ahead with their plan, all of them will remain safe. This is by Bukhari and Muslim. How do we see this today? How do we see this? Isn't it so? Unfortunately, in many of our societies, that people are being tricked and hoodwinked by people who are now become professionals at this. And many of the people who know better have become silent, for whatever the reasons may be. They just become silent. And they've let these people who are criminals, in many instances, carry on. So this criminal element has now become popular because there are others who exploit this because they see a means of benefit. Vice, meaning the kinds of things which are clearly in disobedience to Allah, make a lot of money and make very fast money. Let's take drugs. Illicit drug trade, an example. It makes a tremendous amount of fast money. It's very difficult for a person who becomes accustomed, and I'm not talking about the person who's addicted to the drug. I'm talking about the person who's addicted to making the fast money off the drug. This is something a lot of people don't understand. Everyone who's a drug dealer is not a drug user. And I don't want to go too deep in this, but I'm just making a comparative analysis to understand addiction. And fast money is addiction. You ask anyone who's a gambler about it, and they will explain to you. If you know anyone who's a gambler, he will tell you. He's addicted to the action, the opportunity to possibly make that fast money, or just to see the money moving rapidly. Even if it's going from his hand into somebody else's hand, his mindset is always, well, okay, you want this, but I can get it from your hand just as fast as you took it from mine. That's the part and parcel of the addiction. So similarly, in this world, many of us have become addicted to the things of this world. And we have forsaken our hereafter. And this particular vehicle, modern day communications and social media, has helped to blind people and to take away the realities of what they're facing and to put them into a false reality in many instances, to take their attention away from the truth. And the truth is what we always talk about: eternity. Everything that we're doing today is based on two. Everything we're doing today is based on two. Our eternity. And that eternity is hellfire, paradise. Everything that we're doing is related to one or the other. So if we make it and simplify it in our lives and look at what we're doing every day and make critical choices, it has nothing to do with age. But whatever we're doing in our life, if we take it, people say, well, brother, it's not that simple. Life is more complex than that. There are all kinds of things that are happening on a daily basis. There are all kinds of changes that happen. That's true. But when it comes down to it, whatever is happening in your life, adjust it accordingly. Is this something that's going to benefit me in my paradise? Is this something that's going to harm me and turn me towards the path of hellfire? Simplify it. Now, people says, well, brother, it's not that simple. He says, well, simplify it for the sake of your own soul. My name is Tariq Khalid. I'd like to thank you for joining us here at Sharjah Broadcasting Authority. Paradise and hell. And we need to understand that the steps towards paradise and hell start here, right here. That's the reality that we're all faced with. That's the challenge that we're faced with today and tomorrow if we're living. We'd like to thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you here on future programs. Inshallah ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.